You're listening to Radio On, and our very special guest this evening is one of the early and most active pioneers of the Ukrainian experimental electronic music scene, founder and producer of his label Kvitnu, and in 2021 created his own music entity, Variat. Of course, I'm reading it from his biog on his website. Dmytro Fedorenko, welcome back again.
Good evening. Hello.
All these years we've
2 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
And all the communications that we had from Kiev as well.
2014, yes.
Yeah.
We had 100 connections. Every week we spoke.
I don't know if we even did it with a bigger frequency.
Or maybe twice a week, but at least once a week for sure. And we had it...
it started in December, huh?
For 3 months or 4 months, yes.
Yeah. This is a good way to introduce this a little bit more, the show that we are having, because our first encounter, our first meeting with Dmytro was, I think it was a winter of 2013, 2014, and we started in December.
Yes.
Yeah, when there was a big uprising in Kiev and the Maidan revolution, as it is known right now. And maybe just as an introduction, you can tell a little bit about it, because I also hear there's a lot of legends about it. I think maybe the most important thing is, how did it start?
Yes, actually it's nice to talk about it, because kind of what we have now, it's in many ways it's continuation of what we had in 2013 and 14. And back then our ex-president Yanukovych, he decided not to sign with this association with the European Union, and people didn't like it, because basically for us it would mean that if not EU, then we would go to Russia. And it started with a small uprising of students, and it was really actually not so big. And it started in the end of November 2013, in the last days. And then what never happened before then, that police really violently beat the students at night. And then next morning, almost 1 million people came out. It was the 1st of December. And then started this last revolution, Maidan, which took basically 3 months, and it ended with killing of more than 100 people on the streets of Kiev.
There was like an occupation of the Maidan Square with barricades and yes, daily fighting, because I remember when one of these talks that we had from what does it smell like, and you said when I go to the supermarket I smell burning car tires.
Yes, you reminded me. Yes, because at some point, the Maidan started to grow territorially, and in one of the streets, big fights appeared, and people started to burn tires, which delivered a lot of troubles for the police. Then, because on this black smoke was going to them, and and the smell was also, of course, really strong.
At that time, already, other voices here in Europe, they emphasized that it was a Nazi uprising. I don't know if I asked directly about it, but also here your answer was from they are part of this revolution thing, this part of this protest, and right now we need them because they are the heaviest fighters, and we don't care too much about what is going to happen next. Now this Yanukovych has to go. There's no other thing, he just has to go, and that's what you thought then.
Well, back then actually still we also discussed it back then. I don't remember in details, but let's say meanings of right and left in different parts of the Europe also they're a little bit different, I would say.
I remember you were talking about it.
And let's say, really, I would say, German-style right-wing people. So whatever white supremacy, anything like this, they were not present in Maidan. Even those who tried to come, they were removed immediately. Those guys who were called right sector, actually, those were more like it started as a football ultras, because they were on the right from the stage. And yes, those were the guys who were actually fighting. But I don't know if you want to go into details. It has nothing to do to Hitler's swastika and all of these things. But yeah,
this is a thing that I know because of this involvement, because of this weekly rhythm of talking about it. I went to do a lot of research that I almost became more expert than the experts, because when you gather information, then you know, and then you also know about the right wing thing and the right wing myth in Ukraine, because if you express it in numbers, it's 20% in Germany, it's 20% in the Netherlands, and it's 30 or 40% in France, and it's 1.5% in Ukraine.
Yes, this is actually, it's really good that you brought it up, because whenever I have a discussion now or a year ago, it doesn't matter, that whenever someone asking me about the popularity of nationalism or right-wing ideas, I always say it like this: on the right after Maidan, there was one or two candidates from nationalists for presidency. Altogether, they took less than 2%, and none of national party came into parliament. On the last elections, it was basically the same. All the so-called right-wing people joined with one candidate, and he took, I think, 1 point something %. And altogether, nationalist parties in Ukraine that wanted to go to parliament on elections, not that they just didn't go inside, they had less than 2% altogether. So if we talk about real numbers, it's not even something to talk about. So it's really small. It's really not present in real politics, let's say. And also this was also another discussion about Nazis and racism and so on. I don't know if you know that in 2019. So actually now our president, he's a Jew, and in 2019 Prime Minister was also a Jew, and in 2019 Ukraine was the only country besides Israel where basically two heads of the state were actually Jews. So how Nazi is that?
Yeah. After that change, of course, the whole Donbass thing started, which for foreigners culminated in the downing of MH17. And after that, there was a decline in news coming in. It was from, business as usual. There are shootings and people are dying. Only that 13,000 people have died in all those years. Can you describe a little bit the development of the situation in Ukraine from 2014 to a month ago, and how the relationship of Russia was in all those years?
The situation after MH17 also was, as we would call it, a frozen conflict or slow burning conflict. It was really similar to what is in Georgia happening when after 2008 Russia and also kind of annexed part of the territory, also in Moldova in 90s and so on. And since 2015, when these Minsk agreements were signed, basically the super high escalation stopped, and it was from time to time exchanging shoots and exchanging artillery and so on. And I don't remember how many. I think more than 2 million. Maybe I'm mistaken. That internal refugees were happening since that time.
Oh,
yes. This is also what was barely discussed. That after these 2 weeks now, we have more than 1 million refugees. And
2 million again.
Yes, 2 million. Yes, and then there were internal refugees, was most of them stayed in Ukraine, so they moved from Donbass and from Lugansk regions inside of Ukraine. They were also losing everything, apartments, jobs, and then started life over. And there were also, I think, 1 or 2 million at least. And it was slow burning conflicts. I would say at least one soldier a week was wounded or often killed. It was never stopped. And then when in 2019, when presidents changed, when Zelensky became president, he came with a promise that he knows exactly how to end the war. Yes, that he really believed that if he will talk to Putin, he will convince him. And then he always was convinced that it's only about previous government that was doing all the wrong things. Well, he made in 2019, he started to put back our army from the borders with this rebellion kind of republics. And there was a lot of troubles inside in the country. So there was not many people liked it because it was kind of a retreat or defeat. And until 24th of February this year, it was, well, let's say the president was not really liked by many people.
For what reasons?
For behaving weird. So first of all, for me and for many of my friends, it was a bit weird that comedian was elected in the middle of actually war. And it was, but it's true, majority voted for him. And we also know why. It's one of the reasons, because really the previous guy, Poroshenko, was actually corrupt like hell. Even though he did many good things also, but anyway, it was too obvious to ignore. So it was a weird feeling that you have a country which in the war now, you have annexed Crimea, you have annexed half of Donbass, half of Lugansk, and then you have a team of people who have no idea about politics. And there were a lot of things, a lot of scandals, different types of scandals, involved militaries, involved of conspiracies and so on. And after 24th of February, I think Zelensky is the best guy on the job now, to be honest.
Maybe I don't think that Putin will take advantage of the weakness of a president.
He's not weak, that's the thing.
No, but like you said, if you are not very popular, then you're weak in your position.
Yes. As I guess, as everybody knows, that extreme situations, they kind of make everyone kind of an open wire, so to say.
Yeah.
It really shows who is who for real. And after 24th of February, I don't anyone who was criticizing Zelensky completely says he is the best man on the job now.
Okay, Adrian, do you have a question? Otherwise, I want to twist it like 180 degrees.
Whoa!
Not changing the subject, but going somewhere else, because we are now in the now.
Yep. 24th of February, is that correct? That's
yes.
when the official invasion, or how would you describe it? How do you describe it? It's an attack on Ukraine, or invasion, or how would you say?
Just absolutely classical invasion.
Yep.
As it was previously in the history of Europe and in the world. So declared a few minutes before it started, and then it started at 5 a.m.
And could you believe what was going to happen, or you just knew because they were amassing troops on the borders? And because you live in Berlin now.
Yeah, but
I must say, since
a week before started, we were in Kiev.
Okay.
So basically, actually 3 days before it started, we came back to Berlin from Kiev.
Right.
And I would say, if to talk about in depth about the situation, for me it was not question if, it was the question when.
Yeah.
Because for anyone who knows the history of relations of Ukraine and Russia, history why Ukraine is important for Russia, for their identity, let's say, for the mythology they created for themselves around Ukraine, they would never let us go just like this. We are more important for Moscow than any place around them. And even if you would see videos of General Johar Dudayev, the first president and the only president of Free Chechnya, who was killed by Russians in 90s, he would predict everything what happened in any place around Russia, and including Ukraine, including Crimea, and that there will be a big war between Russia and Ukraine. He just didn't know when exactly. So 1 week before, even 1 month before, I had no doubt that it will start. I just didn't know it will start tomorrow, 1 week later, or it will start 1 month later, but it was obviously that it will be, that it will start one way or another. And not just taking some pieces of land, but full scale, because yes, he needs Kiev. I mean, Putin and all mythology of Russian Empire, which is actually also important to talk, which is not, I don't think it appears so often. Russia is still an empire by its construct. It's called Russia, Federation, and so on. But it has a lot of smaller nations, a lot of smaller kind of mini countries inside of it. So if you talk about really place where Russians live in Russia, it will be limited until Ural Mountains maximum. Because all the Chechnya...
Ural Mountains, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there's Chechnya, there's Dagestan, Ingush, there Buryat. There are so many smaller people which were basically colonized. The thing is that the differences between Russian Empire and other empires, normally, let's say British Empire, they would have colonies outside somewhere there. And it was kind of obvious, okay, this is England, this is Scotland, and this is India, somewhere there. Russia, it was expanding like taking neighbors countries. And just look at the history, what was Moscovia before they took name Russia, what was Moscovia, how big it was, and this before they declared that their empire, and you can see how big they were, or actually how small they were. So these empires, first of all, any empire will die. There were much smarter empires, there were much more developed empires in the past. And Russia will die too. It's not a question if it will be when. The only problem is empires usually die. They don't want to die. Usually die with a lot of blood and with a lot of giving a lot of troubles. So this process is never easy. And as we see now, hopefully this is the last fight. Hopefully this is the beginning of the end of this empire. I really hope so, because. A few days ago, we met a girl. She's from Estonia. She was hysterical. Her mother cannot sleep. We talked to our friends in Poland. It's the same situation. Our friends from Georgia, they also completely involved. Anyone who lives in the countries or who lived in the countries surrounding Russia, basically they understand if Ukraine loses, they are all next. Right. Baltic countries, Poland, Czech, Georgia, Kazakhstan, anywhere, because Russia will not stop for sure. And it's also important. It's not about Putin only. Right.
This is a critical thing.
It's really critical thing because this is important to note it. Because the methods Russian army is using now in Ukraine with shelling cities, shelling schools and kindergartens, erasing cities. If just take a look at the first war in Chechnya, Putin was not the president of the country yet. And they were doing exactly the same things in Chechnya. In this really small, how they started, how they were erasing Grozny, how they were making cleansing in villages. Basically, that's what they do now. And it was not about Putin. It's the methods of the army, of the taking piece of land and then expanding further, never letting go. I don't think it will change only with replacement of Putin. Maybe it will make a pause for some sort of, but as long as this empire exists in its state now, how in this condition, it will never let go Ukraine. It will never let go Baltic countries, Georgia, and so on.
My question before Rinas goes into his 180-degree turn, and also before we play your first track, is I mean, all the demonstrations that have been on in so far in Berlin here, 3 of them so far, they are being very careful to separate the Russian from Putin, and it's all being concentrated on Putin. But so you're saying that there are people around him that are pushing for this, or?
Do you know that his support raised from 67 to almost 80% after he started war in Russia? And it's not fake numbers. He's really majority of population of Russia believes everything what he says. Yes, there's a massive propaganda, but it's true. And why it's and it's not only about people who support; it's also about people who are silent. Who felt comfortable for all these 20 years that it was okay. The Russia was getting richer, and it was comfortable not to pay attention. And not only anyone, artists as well, they were quite comfortable of not doing. Really small minority were actually doing something, trying to do something. So in this case, yes, we see this tries of to say there's a Putin and there's this Russia. We know this narrative. And well, what can we do? We can't really avoid it, but it would be wrong to say so, because as I said, methods of Russia were the same before Putin became a president. Just look at Yeltsin and what he did in Moldova, what he did in Chechnya. And by the way, Chechnya was an independent state recognized by Russia when the war started, and they did it by the law. So 3 years before Russia attacked Chechnya, Chechnya was a free, small, independent state. And they did everything. If you read the history of this country, all the genocides were really similar in the past to Ukraine, what Russia did, and deportations of people. And Chechnya managed to become independent, and it slowly was recognized. At least Russia recognized it, and then basically they attacked independent country in '94. So I would say this is incorrect to put. To differentiate, to discriminate, I would say, Russia and Putin. At least it's too early. Let's say it took, how many years it took Germany after 1945 that you could say that, okay, this is really calm, the situation is calm, and many things were kind of fixed, let's say. 20?
61. Everything was calmed down in 2006. That was the breakthrough.
You see?
Yeah.
So this, I don't know how much time it will take in Russia to be first. I don't know how much time it would take to deliver the message to people.
Yeah, you need a lot of generations to disappear. That's true.
And again, actually, what we expect. We don't expect some big changes happening from those people who are protesting now. If you look back at the war of Chechnya, you will see that actually the real changes started when the mothers started to ask questions.
Right.
And this, many people, I actually agree with this. They start to ask questions already. The numbers of dead soldiers of Russians in Ukraine are astronomical.
Yeah.
Let's say even if the numbers are not super precise and maybe a little bit higher, even though what we see now, it's beyond anything comprehensible. I don't know even how to describe it, because now the numbers are already higher than 2 Chechnya wars altogether, and it's just 2 weeks. And they start to ask questions. And as with Chechnya war, we usually mothers start at questions much harder than just whoever, liberal journalists or artists, or at least in Russia it's like this. So we expect to begin of something with this. And second thing, with the sanctions which started, actually I'm surprised how fast they brought effect.
Right.
Now I forgot a little bit, but one Russian journalist said that Russians start to protest only when they are hungry and they have nothing to eat. It's not Ukrainian, it's not my word. It's what one liberal and the dissident Russian journalist said it, which is also kind of true. So it's heavy. It will be heavy on many people there, and mothers and financial troubles. We expect the beginning of something there.
to change.
It's a little bit what you see in the few movies that come on the web of protests in Russia. There's a lot of women in the front. So if there are arrests, then you see women running to the policemen, and they are braver right now. But probably maybe there's also a little bit of difficulty from a policeman not to hit women immediately.
You are very wrong. They put now one girl who was taking police secretly. She recorded interrogation.
I know.
Beating, electricity, rape. It's all full scale there.
Yeah.
So basically, it's not about that girls are going in front because the police will be slower to them or like softer. No, it's not at all.
Okay.
And this is actually one of the things which is. For Ukrainians, after our experiences, even with Maidan, is completely shocking. When I see that when police is taking old women, arresting old women, and there are few dozens of men standing and looking at it and doing nothing. I cannot take it at all. And when I hear that yes, they are facing 15 years in jail for protests, we had the same. In 2014, we had exactly the same laws as now they have in Russia. If for protests, 15 years in jail. When they put these laws in power, even more people came out on the streets. And for now, what I see that till this moment, I think there was only one fight with cop, which was really soft. So until this moment, not one policeman in Russia was hurt while arresting women and also children put in jail.
Yeah. Also.
This is, for us, is unspeakable. How it's possible that so many thousands of people going out to protest, they have thousands of soldiers dying in the war, and basically it's not even a protest.
Well, you can make an interpretation on two levels. One is mentality of Russian people, or take Berlin as an example. When Goebbels came here in 1927, for 8 years or for 6 years there was a reign of terror. So everyone in the street knew that these people would go until and over the limit, and that was this intimidation was very effective in keeping people silent. So I don't know how much of this terror is present in Russian street life.
I don't know, but the more
if they also intimidated from
well, obviously they are scared. Who wouldn't be? But then the question is, if you don't pay attention to a problem for 1 year, it's becoming bigger. If you don't pay attention to a problem for 10 years, it's 10 times bigger. I don't know, 1,000 times bigger. So basically, the longer you wait, it was not like this. It was not like this. I don't know, 10 years ago. So this is definitely escalating.
Yeah.
And it's escalating also because of the silence. And it's also escalating because of not doing enough. So basically, what we have now, the question, when somebody is saying, yeah, but they're scared, what were you doing for 20 years? And it's not general questions for all Russians. I'm asking some of my friends in Russia who actually silent completely. Not one Russian person wrote us even one message since the beginning. Not one. Including Borisov.
Fear?
Nothing. Zero. When they said that they are scared to talk about it openly, okay, maybe. But we had nothing. Nobody would ask us, how are you guys? What with your families? We are scared, we're ashamed. Nothing. Nobody.
I must admit, Dmytro, I know we have got this person in Moscow who regularly sends in shows. If I send a mail to him, I really take care on what to write, and also take care on not to provoke him, to let him write things to me, because it might bring trouble to him. So,
well, yes, yeah, of course, yes. Yeah. But as I said, we had the same thing. So you see, it's kind of when. I think it was last summer, protest in Belarus. Ukrainians projected so much hope that it will change. And whenever we would... but again, it's kind of wrong. We had our wishes, but it's wrong to project yourself to a neighbor country. Because even though when you're a neighbor, I have no idea why Belarus, they lost their chance back then. And it ended up
terror.
It ended up as a terror. Yes,
Yeah.
that's the thing. But this is the law. If you start protesting against tyranny, you have two options: either you win, or you will end up in much harder terror.
Yeah.
That's the thing. But it's not specifically to Russia or to Belarus or to anyone else. This is kind of the human history. It happened like this. Yeah.
Okay, we can go into the abstract, but the 180 degrees turn I was talking about is when I see on television, for example, I visit my mom, and then on the television I see Berlin. Then I always go from, I was with my bicycle over there, and I was with my bicycle over there, and I was with my bicycle over there. Oh, I don't know that part, but there's always this pleasure in recognizing. I don't think that you now have much pleasure in recognizing, but what is the impact of seeing all these images? Because your family lives there, your friends live there, and if you see bombed out buildings and neighborhoods being shelled, do you recognize something from I have been there, or this is there and it's not far from where my family lives? How close is this to your personal life?
Full scale, of course. Yes, from the first airstrikes in Kiev, it's. I see every building. I was like my friends lived next door, or I was going to a shop in this place, and so it's really it's the same. It feels it's not abstract that you see something is happening there, and not only in Kiev, because Chernihiv, this city on the north, it's basically it's 30 kilometers from the even smaller city where I was born, and it's almost erased now, and even this city I don't know that's as good as Kiev, but also I see buildings which I remember, and schools and churches. Yeah, it feels actually, even though it was already, I don't remember, second day or something, when I saw the first this missile hitting a big building tower in Kiev, it felt like
television tower.
No, this building like the residency tower. I think it was the first one which was shown. Then it's kind of changed that I realized that I still had some hopes that the war will be it will not escalate to this level. So I kind of they started it, but when they started to shelling just houses, and then I understood that we will have to rebuild the country in many cases from the ground.
Oh yeah.
Yes, already several cities already don't exist. Also, two small cities, Irpin and Bucha, which are basically less than 10 kilometers from Kiev, they already don't exist.
In what sense? Because they've been bombed?
Bombed completely. So no buildings, no gas, no electricity, no infrastructure, and people are trying to escape now. And you see the streets where it's really like Grozny in Chechnya in 95. So just basically nothing is there anymore. Not even, so just some remainings of the houses. And private houses, they're shelling not only high floor buildings, but they're also shelling surrounding villages or suburban areas. So many private houses also gone completely. And also like city Irpin, which is really small, 10 kilometers from Kiev, it's new, and like 99% it's completely new buildings. So it was built, this micro city was built since last, 7-8 years. It's amazingly beautiful in the parks, and all these houses, not ugly, some buildings, but really small, nice cottage places, or some even high towers, but they are really not so extremely, they're really, really nice, and everything is gone now. And we've been there, like, I don't know, last summer, enjoying how much beautiful this small place now, and even more beautiful than Kiev in many ways, and now no more. And my parents, they're basically like 3 kilometers from the war zone now. from this European erased city of 5 kilometers.
So they're more in the underground than at home.
Yes, they spend often hours in the basement, but they have private house, and hopefully for now they are a little bit in outskirts, and the village they live, it's really small, and so far it's still there. But already one missile came to my parents' yard. Yes, and hopefully it came on the other side of the garden. And so it destroyed fence and few windows with these pieces of the missile. And this kind of things, or some fires happening in surrounding areas.
And they hear it all the time, and they see it all the time.
They already kind of got used to it.
Yeah.
And my sister was there, and finally she moved. Actually, she escaped only today to another place which is safe now. But my parents said, no, we don't want to go anywhere. So it's not possible to influence, because many people actually, they deny to go anywhere as long as the house is standing.
Yeah.
So they are kind of standing their ground, so to say. Yes.
But you're in touch, you're in contact with them.
Yeah, as much as possible.
Of course.
So today, when my sister was moving from this village, the problem was that this highway, which is 2 kilometers from the house, it's already there are tank battles happening there.
Yeah.
So the trouble was, so usually when they're escaping, if people have cars, they create a kind of a column, and then there are people who are checking on certain places if it's safe to go. Then they receive a comment, and then they're crossing this highway, like perpendicular way, and then there are some special roads how to do it, how to walk. So Russians, which are basically 100 meters there, this block post is standing, and they're shooting every car which they can see. So it was kind of a special mission impossible to escape. Yes.
So we're, if you've just joined us on Radio On, we have our very special guest this evening, Dmytro Fedorenko, Ukrainian artist. It's March the 8th. It's International Frauentag, International Women's Day today, Sunday. Blue sky here in Berlin.
Mimosa will be blossoming also in Ukraine.
Yes.
Springtime. It's springtime, yeah. Just to not really, I can't change things, the direction of the questions, but I want to say that in 2021 you created your new music entity, Variat.
Yes.
How does your music reflect what's going on? I mean, we had the pandemic, which now seems to be changing, perhaps in a certain sense. But how does your music reflect what's going on around you, for your life?
Well, now it's not possible for me to do music. To concentrate at the moment. But with COVID, it was completely different. Actually, when COVID started, creative-wise, it's the best 2 years since last 10 years, probably. I never made as much music, and not only music, as I did during COVID times. Somehow something switched, this acceptance of forces from outside, which you cannot control. And it was like a journey to myself in many ways. And this new project, Variat, was a challenge because all 20 or 25 years before I only made electronic music, and this is guitars. Still experimental, anything, but 90% of the sound I made only with guitars.
And it's on the decks now.
Yes.
And it's clear vinyl, but it's got some kind of, because you also did the artwork as well for your other label, Kvitnu, as well, a certain amount.
Mostly Zavaloka did. In this case, for Kvitnu, Zavaloka did most of the artworks, or almost all of them. In this one, this is my paintings, this aquarelle or watercolor paintings here. This was also one of experiments because somehow visual things started to grow.
That's a lot of water, and you go and you make a circle or what?
Not well, watercolor. No, it. In this case, so the album is called "I Can See Everything from Here," and somehow when I was experimenting with the paint, this eye appeared.
Uh-huh.
It looks like an eye on the front of the album cover.
And here also by doing the same technique, only surround everything inside was gone, and this kind of sword Ouroboros or something weird snake appeared.
Well, this might in fact be the model of the universe, that everybody thinks it's a vast space, but in fact it's a circle. You hit something, Dmytro. So, no?
So the Renus is holding up the album cover now because it's radio here.
Yeah.
First of all, it looks very Zen-like to me, but also this kind of snake eating itself somehow. So it's black and white image. Could also be stone as well, or some.
Yeah, but don't you think that the universe is this shape?
The universe is this shape, but the title of the album is "I Can See Everything from Here."
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna think about this universe as a ring, but and the center is void. So
Renus is not the center of the universe. Then Renus, you're not the center of it.
Nobody is the center of the universe because everybody's on the outskirt.
We're on the edges.
The universe is the outskirt.
So should we play one of these tracks? What's the name of the track that you want to play?
Track will be "There's Lots of Lights Leaking All Over."
listening to Radio 1. Our special guest this evening, Dmytro Fedorenko. And that was from the album Veriat. I Can See Everything From Here. What was the name of that particular track?
There's lots of light leaking all over.
Yeah. There's lots of light leaking all over. Great names here. Remaining Somewhat Myself. The Halves Are Once Again Together. Did this have anything to do with the pandemic?
No, nothing.
I mean,
No.
This is a year old now, or you've been working on this for a year, or
for 6 months.
6
I was
months,
working on it,
right?
and this album and this project is it's kind of baby of pandemic.
The baby.
But I would never do anything about COVID. It would be too primitive, I would say.
No. I mean, I don't mean directly, but indirectly. How as the question was before, how does your work reflect what's going on around you?
COVID just made push some reflections on myself, kind of looking inside. That's why this eye on the cover and the names, they're kind of references to more some practices or to some observations of myself. From myself, so to say. Yes. So it's kind of very personal level work.
Another question I have: Why did you stop the label Kvitnu? When did you stop it? By the way, a few years ago.
The 2021.
Yep.
On the first COVID year.
For anyone who's not aware of this epic, I want to use this legendary epic label, Kvitnu, can you describe it a little bit?
Yeah, how this thing started, because then we have to go back to a scene in Kiev. When I read now, it's the new club capital of the world. But what kind of capital was it when you were living there?
It was far from it. We started label in 2006. So basically, started it together with Zavoloka. I was boss of the label, and I offered her to be the boss of the design of the visual representation of aesthetics of the label.
But you were too.
Yes, in the beginning, of course. So
it's easy to be a boss.
No, it was not so much about being a boss. It was more about to clearly understand who is doing what, because then it's just easier to know responsibilities. And for instance, it's nice. To my understanding, it's nice to know what's doing who. So let's say if I'm deciding whether I like them or not, and I can ask Zavoloka questions her opinion, but I will decide yes or no. And the same when she's doing cover. If she wants to, she can ask me if I like her idea or not. But anyway, the last words is hers. Yeah. So it was kind of boss, not boss, but basically it was everybody's doing job and has the last word on decisions on every level. And in 2006 we started this label, and idea was to do something international, very personal, and somehow it grew. In many ways, I didn't plan in which direction exactly it would go. And we had quite good team of international artists from Portugal, Italy, USA as well.
How did this happen?
Just people
because
sending...
we have people in every corner of the world who are listening, and they...
want to start their own labels?
Yes, indeed. So there you are. You do the covers and I do the sounds. But then, how do other people get involved? Well,
demos.
What kind of infrastructure?
Demos, or just artists were sending demos. I always believed in this kind of pure way of interacting. And I would listen for 15 years of label existence. I listened to each and every demo I received.
Like John Peel.
All the time, of course. And I would say maybe almost 100% of artists on the label, they appeared on the label after sending us their demo works.
No invitation.
I think like Pansonic we asked.
That's what I was about to say.
Yes.
I was about to ask actually. Yeah.
But Pansonic was also, we invited them to perform on the event, and then I asked their permission to record this event. And then it was 2009, and 5 years later they said yes, let's do a release. So I think only Pansonic, maybe Ilpo later on his solo album, but all other artists, we all started collaboration when I didn't know these people. They just sent me a demo and I listened to it and I said, okay, let's do it. So it was really naturally growing process. And when the label was closed, we all remained super good friends, and all artists understood when I explained them why I'm doing this, and it took actually quite a long time to prepare it. So from the moment when I understood that I have to close the label to the moment when it was closed, I think it was more than 1 year.
But why did you do it then? You decided that was it?
You see, as world of music, let's say, changed a lot.
Yeah.
And it's not about complaining of it. Changes are good. I like changes.
In what way is it change?
Many rules. Well, you see, running a label and taking artists is kind of, you take responsibility for someone else's music, and you want to present it as good as possible. And I always had the vision, starting from the quality of covers and presentation. Maybe it's not about how big label was, but I always knew the quality of the product we would produce. And at some point I just realized that I cannot deliver, I cannot sustain on the same level as it was possible to do it previous 12 or 13 years. I was not satisfied with, I was facing compromises, and I never like compromises in art and music.
Compromising with who or what?
With production, with promotion, with sales also, and somehow I started to feel. Let's say, to my understanding, art and music, it's not the place to compromise, because you can compromise in many other levels. Life is full of places where you can compromise, but art is something which actually designed to be as much honest as possible, full scale. And I just subjectively didn't feel that I can continue doing label as I wanted it to do.
Can you give an example of the compromises that you had to do? Or
I didn't understand already how to make promotion for releases, for instance, because the situation changed so much that in 2006 I knew that if I invest this money or if I send this number of copies to journalists, it will result in some number of reviews. And these reviews will bring attention to the release, and then there will be some sales. And it was not so much about money; it was more about sales means that people coming and listening to the artist. Now I have no idea. I don't understand the logic of what is going on. At some point, sending demos to journalists started to give unpredictably low and weird results in reviews, and at some point, whether there is a review or no, it had zero result in appearance, in interest to the artist or to the release. And I felt that something has changed, and the situation was, some of my colleagues would tell me, don't close, change, do something. Or even some colleagues told me, just keep it to the name is good, just keep it to yourself and to Zavaloka. And I said, then it will be degrading, then it will be disrespectful to my colleagues. It's kind of tempting, but then it was not the idea of the label.
Yeah, you don't keep a label for yourself.
Of course.
Yeah.
And then we started label for ourselves, but then we started a new label, and it was only for two of us. But then we closed at first. We closed Kvitnu, and Kvitnu was closed. Also, you see, I see it like this. Any project has the beginning and it will end, like a book or a TV series, anything, music album. And it's really important how you start something, but it's also really important how you end something. And before Kvitnu was closed, I made kind of research, and I looked at as many labels as I could remember, kind of similar, or let's say in general, experimental music labels. And I saw a horrible picture. I saw a lot of labels which stopped functioning, but they were not closed. Just dead websites for 2 years, for 3 years, and labels which I knew they would making good releases, they just became frozen. And I thought, wow, probably guys got really scared. It's kind of feeling of death in a way to close your own project, especially if you invested 10 years in it or 15 years in it. I don't know the reasons. Again, I was not judging. I just realized that, wow, the situation is really, it's not only me. And then I talked to a few of my colleagues, and they said, it's really completely changed.
But in this research, did you also find the labels that are alive?
Yes, this is the second.
Everybody tells me you should release on vinyl because everybody buys vinyl. But
Second bad thing I saw is a label who stayed alive, but they, for instance, the label who was producing amazing CDs or vinyl, they continued as a digital only.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lose. It's a lose of your concept. It's a compromise.
Of course.
Also I was also told of my colleagues, go digital. I said, but it was not my idea. Why would I go digital? I don't feel the release myself. And anything. So I was writing lists of reasons to keep or not, or to close.
Yeah.
Sleepless nights for many months. It was really not easy, to be honest, because it was 15 years of my life.
Yeah.
And it was in many ways it was like 24/7 job, waking up, checking emails, orders, and demos, and making plans and so on. But I think it was done perfect, to be honest, because the reaction from artists showed me that it was that in general label was amazing. It was closed with a clean cut, so the label will stay. Let's say it will be like this small brick in the wall of music. It's found its place, and I never failed. I would say when I see the reaction of artists, what they wrote. When the label was closed, so it was. I would say it was a good ending.
Maybe you weren't aware that time was passing. Because the other day at Jason's
talk about Jason Oni.
At Jason's birthday, I was talking to somebody, and it was only about memories. And at that point, that you think, well, yeah, shit, hey, I've got a history in Berlin, and now I'm leading a completely different life. Yeah, okay, So this is what's happened to your label. You had a very fertile period, and now it's
yes. And I thought
the next step. But you still didn't answer my question.
Yes,
in this research, what are the labels now? Because vinyl is very popular, tapes are very popular. So where did the focus go to?
It's important. It's also, I think it's important. I don't generalize to anyone else. I did my own research and I made my own decision.
Okay.
So when also a few times in Ukraine, some young guys would ask me, should I start label? What would be my advice? And I say, yes, if you want, you can do it. But first of all, you have to know why you're doing it. You have to understand that if you really want to do it well, it will eat your time full scale. And if it's possible to start label now, most probably yes. As I said, the world music is changing, but it's not dead. It's just changing. And I just realized that these changes don't comply with my ideas of Kvitnu. So it's not my vision is not fatalistic, or not everything is dead, not everything is bad, not at all. It's just the way the situation changed. Also, the way I changed, the way I saw myself. I also didn't see in many ways continuing doing producing other people's music. It was also another subject. So I kind of wanted to set myself free.
So you have a personal production which is augmented.
It took me 1 year. I knew it will take time. So after the label was closed, I didn't know how long it will take, but I knew it will take some time. So I kind of let it go and say, okay, let's see how it goes. It took 1 year since I was able to listen to music without judging.
Oh, God.
Because you're getting all these demos.
Yes.
Are you still getting demos, by the way?
I do, but I don't listen to them. I just politely reply. I just say that that Kvitnu is closed, and new project Prostor is it's not even a label. It's more like a art space, I would say. So labels I don't listen to, and really I just realized that 1 year after Kvitnu was closed, that I would listen to some album of some band without thinking, would it fit for Kvitnu? How would I release it? And I thought, okay, now I'm free.
Good.
But you listen to music in general. Like
Yes.
today, Sunday, 8th of March, what did you listen to for breakfast? Or did you put anything on the turntable? Or
Somehow, since last, it was also a weird change. Mostly I listen to heavy experimental guitar music from America.
for example,
Like little,
Grateful Dead? Sorry. It was the first thing that came to mind.
more like Liturgy from Brooklyn, or The Body. These guys, and so this really heavy and really experimental things, and quite radically sounding music. And this would be my focus in what I was listening lately.
Did you have any demonstrations against? Sorry, this is the final question about closing
Yes.
your Kvitnu. Any adverse reactions? People saying no, this is not going to happen, or this will be the end of us, or what are we going to do now? Or
there was some number of listeners, because we actually had a small army of hardcore fans, people who were buying everything, and they really loved everything. Many people became really sad. Yes, and I don't know. The end of label was the conceptual release was named Silence. It was just one loop of silence on 7-inch record, just in the center. I'm sorry, I forgot.
I seem to remember it actually, because I remember you.
Unfortunately, I forgot to bring it. So basically, we
Forgot to bring Silence.
Yes, it was just a silent loop in the middle of 7-inch record, one-sided record, and I wrote a concept, and this was the idea to close the label with a silent release. And we made a limited edition of 7-inch records.
How many are there?
100.
100,
Yes.
right.
And that was the idea, is to close the label and to go silent.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it was the last release of Kvitnu was named Silence.
Do you remember what you ate that evening? Did you go out to a restaurant, or you made your
Was
famous
it an official
famous curries? Or
I don't think I worry it as much as that day when I posted when I posted the end, and when I sent to everyone messages. Yes, I think I became even more gray in my hair than.
Oh no!
Yes, no, it was really intense, and it was really not easy, because even in the last evening I was still worrying that I'm closing something of 15 years of my life. And it was really, I wanted to be perfect. I wanted to write the perfect message to artists. I wanted to write, to not to go. Also important for me was not to end it sad, because I didn't want. It was not sad ending. It was actually ending on the pinnacle of the label.
Yes, sure.
Dmitry, you live together with Zavoloka.
Yes.
So the two of you, for 15 years, you have been caring a lot of your artist, caring a lot of your label, caring a lot of how to bring it out, of what it should look like, to make it all make perfect. And where does the care go now? Because nothing gets lost in ways of energy, and caring for something is a way of giving energy to something. How could you shift your attention to, in what direction did it go?
Just
or did it go just from oh, now we've got time for ourselves and let's clean the house?
Kind of, yes, but
figure it in a way of speaking, and not literally. I should
kind of, yes. We got time for ourselves, and now actually there's no boss, so to say. There's no someone is with the so. We also let go of this structure of business relations, so to say, because now on our new label, as we call it, the Prostir. Now there are 4 projects, so Zavoloka, Kotra, this Variat, and this our collaboration Cluster Lizard. And there is no waiting line, no demos. whoever finishes the album, it getting released. So
It's a home label.
Yes, and it's kind of, it's not, as we don't even really call it a label. It's more like a place, like a product. I don't know how to say. We just needed to have it.
Yeah, you must put somewhere a sign for no demos, please.
Yes, something like this. And actually, yes, we are just artists now. We don't think so. She doesn't have to think about making artworks for anyone else, and I don't have to think about demos. We don't have to think about waiting line of releases. No planning of as it was before. So I finished the album first. It gets released, and then she finished her solo album. It gets released, or we finish Cluster Lizard, and we decide how to get released. It's kind of continuation, but it's completely different.
Sounds like happiness.
Yes, actually it's true.
Unfortunately, there is a war. But,
yes, but if to talk about this, the changes, it sounds like happiness because the experience is not gone. All the knowledge after 15 years of Kvitnu, well, you kind of cannot miss it. It just stays with you. All this promotion, production, mailing this and all this stuff, shipping. It just we don't have to think about anyone else.
Do you still have like rooms and rooms of records and things from, or you just managed to get rid of everything, or people still?
No. The idea was when Kvitnu was closed, all the remaining stock was sent to artists. So artists received somebody received one box, somebody 2 CDs of vinyl, somebody more.
That's very generous.
Well, this was the idea because it was also to close something. I think I only kept some copies of Muslim Gauss because, well, basically Bryn Jones is not with us anymore, and Pansonic I kept because Ilpos said that he has enough anyway. So that's all, and all the remaining stock was sent to artists with a number of boxes. I think it took 1 week or something. So all artists received all the releases which I had, and I told them, please sell it, set up your own band camps, and feel free. And also, I asked them if they want to do re-release. Don't even ask me. Just put it was released by Kvitnu somewhere on the cover. It will be enough. That's all.
So no contracts. There were no contracts or anything.
So we only had contracts only on the level of to make some production things and so on. So it was always on on trust. That's all.
Were there some of them living in Berlin so that you could go with
one
with Jan's transport bike?
One is a lot pattern, but his releases were all sold out. Because in his case, some artists had smaller numbers, so it was always kind of unpredictable. And actually, no, 2. And one Malfini ensemble, they received 200 or something CDs because their project was not so well sold. It was really amazing, but it was a bit slowing down.
Yeah, tell me, these things happen.
So let's talk about sci-fi music and Cluster Lizard.
Yeah. Okay. We are going to put
another
track
record
first.
here. Yeah, maybe we should just put the vinyl on the deck.
Okay.
See what happens.
Let's see. It's the last album. It came out. I will talk about it because it's worth describing.
Oh, they're beautiful. Every record has got some kind of thing about it. And this is also kind of clear vinyl, blue.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Radio On with Dmytro Fedorenko, and that was Cluster Lizard. Sci-fi music for sci-fi. It's very filmic.
Yes, this was Cluster Lizard, and this is the project that we do with Zavoloka. It's already third album, and behind this project, so we had with her also music-wise several albums released together, but as Kotra and Zavoloka, or Zavoloka versus Kotra, and so on and so on. And then somehow we were invited to present Electronic Festival in Paris a long time ago, I think 2015.
You used to organise festivals as well, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Rins is saying no.
It was a little bit more recent
What?
than Paris.
No, the Cluster Lizard started in 2015 in Presence Electronic Festival, when Christian Zanisi invited us, and we made a new program, and it sounded somehow not me and not Zavoloka. It sounded kind of weirdly new, and then after we performed it, we got offer to make it release, which was also interesting, not doing it by ourselves. And then we decided to make it a band, and we both absolutely in love with sci-fi books and movies.
Can you name a few? Go on.
Well, Cluster Lizard comes. It's actually a character from the TV series Lex, and for us, I think it's the best thing which happened with TV on this planet ever.
You mentioned in the last show.
Yeah, I remember.
Yes.
Yeah. But people don't follow Radio On.
No, that's right. That's right.
So,
but they can collect it. We can make a kind of label.
Actually, Lex, this TV series is all 4 seasons on YouTube for free.
Which you mentioned before.
Yes. So
LEX.
2X. LEXX.
Right.
We will put the link on our website.
And this was one of the things. But anything, basically anything hi-fi from whatever alien stuff. So we consume all possible. And when it comes to sci-fi, it's also like Neil Stevenson is my most favorite writer ever. And William Gibson and so on. So we always, not only, but somehow this is a special thing for us. And 1984 is kind of not fantasy, but still in a way of this vision of the world, how it can be. And each album of Cluster Lizard, it's also another thing. We have a dream both to make a soundtrack someday to some movie.
Great.
And since we decided, if we don't have to wait. If we're not invited to make soundtrack for a movie, we can make soundtrack for a movie that doesn't exist. And we just decided to make it cinema, and it sounded cinematic from the first album. It sounded like a storytelling in a way. And this is now the third album, and this album, it's a bit different. Starker Sar is the name of the book.
What's the name of this album?
Starker Sar.
Right.
And we took it, we decided to make a soundtrack for the novel, for the book. And this is a novel of Oles Bernik. He was one of the most prominent Ukrainian dissidents in Soviet times. And for this book, he was sent to Gulag. And he was a sci-fi writer. And
is his name here somewhere?
Yes. Everything. The description is on the cover, all the concept and with description. And this and Oles Bernik somehow in this Starker novel, he wrote a sci-fi book. And it was published because it looked like just a sci-fi. But somehow censors of Soviet Union, a bit later with some delay, they realized that actually there's quite a lot of things written, embedded in the text, which is not so good for the regime.
Wow.
And his books, just imagine, so first of all, his book were taken from all the libraries immediately, and they were actually publicly burning his books.
Oh, no.
Yes.
What an outdated concept.
Yes. And he went to jail, to Gulag, for this novel, and then he went out, and then I think he was 2 or 3 times sent to whatever different types of concentration camps.
What time are we talking about?
70s.
Now?
Yeah. This book was published in 71, I think.
It's the Brezhnev Gulag.
Yeah. And last year was the anniversary of this book. And we decided to not only to make a soundtrack, our vision of this novel, but also to contribute it to Oles Bernik, because he is one of the bright minds of the 20th century of Ukrainian literature.
Still alive?
No. He died. He was already quite old, and and we got in contact with his daughter. She's alive, and so kind of we would do it anyway. We didn't ask for anything, but we wanted her to know that we have this idea, that we want to promote her father and somehow to push his name. And she liked the idea. And then we met her when the album was released. We gave her some copies, and we came to Kiev, and she liked the music, and she even so we gave her enough copies to give it to her friends and colleagues. And this also and somehow Cluster Lizard, it also comes with the events as we have today, because Oles Bernik also knew that this will happen, that he was fighting for freedom of Ukraine from Russia and for Soviet Union all his life.
Wow.
And his books are all about freedom, inner and outer and political and self-development. So somehow it all comes together in this case. So this album, Starker Ser, is sci-fi and political at the same time. But not political, kind of with a direct narrative.
Does he? Maybe now it's a little bit difficult, but his legacy in Ukraine is
small. Very small. No? They really did their best to erase him. The Soviets, if they wanted to erase somebody, they really did their best. And now what is good, that not only because of but at least after this album was released in Ukraine, many people they went and bought his book, which this Starker Ser, which published again.
Right.
And because of this album, so we kind of in Ukraine we popularized his name back.
Great.
Yes, it worked. It worked quite well, and also
which means that you've got some impact in cultural life and.
We do, yes, I think so. I think,
sometimes people are very modest about this, but what?
Look, we not to be modest or not to play these kind of games. Not so. Zavoloka and me were not only, but we were really one of the first ones who were doing anything electronic experimental in Ukraine. We started like more than 20 years ago.
Yeah, but this doesn't mean a lot if you've got only 20 people in the audience. So you have to give figures.
Well, we have some people in the audience, and maybe we have some reputation. Maybe sometimes not so maybe sometimes too hardliner reputation, especially in my case, but we push something, so we knew that we will spread the word. This is for sure. And we knew that there are some number of people in Ukraine who after 20 years they follow us, and they will pay attention for sure. And also that there are enough journalists who actually they pay attention to what we do. And Kvitnu is kind of a strong name in Ukraine, really strong name still.
Okay, so to bring it back, the release of this album made people in Ukraine go out and buy the books, and made a publishing house decide to print this book again.
Not that much. The book, it was separate decision. But actually, when we released the album, we found out that the book was published again, which was independent. And I don't know how many people went, but we know because often we receive messages, and several people told us that they knew nothing about Oles Bernik, and after this album was released, they went and bought the book or downloaded whatever, and they then read it, and there was some number of people, and usually, if I know about, let's say, 5 or 10 people, then I can kind of make projection that there are kind of more would be.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we know from his daughter that the book sales were good in general. So it's not only because of us, but we paid some. We did something.
Paid some homage to him.
We added some promotion. So it was in the same year, which also was not planned. So we released this album, and then it was the
amazing.
40 years since the release of the book, and it was reprinted. It was book for the first time since 1971. It was printed again.
So good, it wasn't erased completely.
You know that
the picture immerses.
We have original, and the Holocaust grandmother saved this book.
Oh wow!
And literally, for having the copy of this book, you could get really big troubles. And some people we know that they would do this. They would tear the cover, put some other book like Marx or something, throw it, throw it in the fire, and then save the book without the cover.
Okay.
In somewhere in private, in shelves and so on. So they tried to erase it, but the movement of samizdat of holding or hiding books was really strong in Soviet Union. And apparently we have original at home.
Wow. Two questions that come to mind. One is, was that the only book that he wrote?
No. He
So
wrote several.
many?
It was this one is the kind of pinnacle of his
Okay.
of his legacy, and the most famous also because for this book he was sent to Gulag.
Right. And second question is, can you quickly tell us what happens in this book or what it's about?
Oh, it's really hard to do. The events are happening really fast. Okay, it's about how one planet creates dominance on another planet just to suck resources and to destroy the development of another planet, and how kind of space dissidents, so to say, how they're fighting this conscious eating planet, how they're rescuing their own life, their consciousness, and a lot of things about about the vision, what is freedom, how much inner freedom affects outer freedom, so to say.
You're talking about the war again.
Yes, also yes.
There's no question, is there? It seems to be feeding into it or reflecting it.
This is the thing, one of the slogans in Ukrainian mythology, freedom or death. This was since centuries coming back again and again and again and again. And this idea of freedom, it's in the national anthem and in book of Alice Bertnik. It's all one somehow. And in his book, which was also for us personally was important, that he draws the line and connects that you cannot be free outside if you're not free inside, and it's all interconnected, and you cannot feel free inside if you're a slave outside. And so this book is really multi-level freedom perception, and what is tyranny, and how much the utopian systems they turned into tyranny so fast, and why it's happening, and so on, and so on and so on.
Can we hear another track from this album? Please.
I think it's there.
Oh, yes. Got it here, right in front of me. Wow. I can feel all the static electricity coming off me now. You're listening to Radio On Berlin on the 4th of March. What happened on the 4th of March? March the 8th. cluster lizard in the studio.
I want to spell out maybe our listeners, you sitting there on your couch or walking
out there,
walking in the street,
dog,
or cycling your bike with your iPods or your earphones.
No one does that anymore.
No, what they do now? They've got big earphones on.
Yeah, massive. They're massive.
Big headphones, and then they walk around and they listen to whatever. So, if you're listening this and you're wondering from who is this science fiction writer from Ukraine, I'm going to spell it out, and I hope I can spell it right. It's OLES. Oles Bertnik, BERDNY K. So that's the guy, but we will put his name and the links that I can find on the website, and you go to radio-on-berlin.com and search for Dmytro.
But there's no
Fedorenko.
question you're going to see him in all over the place soon, aren't you? Because you'll be doing the soundtrack, of course, all these tracks here. These are prequel to this big movie that will come out.
Yeah, Ukraine will be built like Blade Runner 2043 kind of thing. It's completely holographic and publicity on big screens. Just
yeah. Of course, our dear listeners, you must wonder, what we talk about when the records are playing, because of course we're not just listening to the tracks and things. But I did fire this question at you, Dmytro, while I really want to get this in there, and I asked you about Star Trek, and you said your answer was.
The Star Trek came after the fall of Iron Curtain in the end of 80s. It came much later than all other movies like Star Wars or Alien and so on. Because I think mostly because it was TV series. And TV series, they were out of format, especially like good ones like sci-fi TV series. They came much later.
So we're talking about the original series, like the 70s. For all you Trekkies out there, that all arrived in a different time order, almost a sci-fi film in itself.
I would say the super early things with movies started to appear in the end of 80s with the private TV. It was called TV Saloon. When there was one TV in a room for 100 people, really like a TV, VHS tape, you could go and buy a ticket, and then it would be horrible quality, it would be horrible translation, but those was the first experience of Hollywood-like movies.
Amazing.
And for instance, Aliens, I saw like this when I was, the screen was the size of this for me.
You're putting up like the size of a
CD
mobile
cover.
phone or something like that.
Yes, because I was sitting too far, because if you come late, then you're sitting too far. And you barely see anything. So it was, and then on the TV, something started to appear, I would say 1991, when like Star Wars could be shown on TV. And then you could see it with good translation, with good quality.
And what was your impression after watching the very first, A New Hope?
I super much liked it.
Number 4, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, I liked everything. Basically, in that time,
me too.
Anything coming from the outside was consumed like the treasure, I would say.
Okay.
Then later on, we decide if we like it so much or not.
Sure.
Because it was just about some different quality, about different stories, about different concept, different attitude, and so on. It was just so much different that at the beginning it was, in many ways, especially when you're like 13 or 14, in many ways it was just different. It was already good.
And what about all this new stuff like The Mandalorian and all these guys? I mean, and Disney now controls Star Wars. I think you just produce all this stuff.
It's to McDonald's.
Okay. Okay.
It's sad. I don't understand why Lucas sold. I know this. Sometimes the decisions, what you don't have enough money. You created a perfect product, perfect art piece, and then you basically flush it in the toilet of Disney. Why?
Good question.
You will not spend this money till the end of your life.
Did you ever see The Muppet Show and stuff like that? Did that ever come over to? Because that was I'm just making a connection between, Baby Yoda and all that, which I never liked Yoda, I must say, because all I could think of was Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy and the Muppets and everything else.
I like
This is
how
Star
he
Wars?
spoke.
Yeah, Remus,
Okay.
yeah, 1977, 77, or maybe when was it? When did it come over to Ukraine then?
On TV in 91 or 90.
Wow.
Yes.
So like 20 years after, or
Yes.
80, 90?
Before-
no, 10 years after.
Before there was some, we've heard about some illegal VHS tapes and so on, but it was no. You have to be maybe the son of some communist leader, because they had access to information. But for normal people, we had nothing. I mean, we had French movies, Alain Delon suffering against capitalism and fighting for the people, or Italian comedies. So this was the films which were accepted by Soviet Union, mostly French films about suffer of working class people, and ending at guillotine, of course, or Italian comedies.
What are Italian comedies? You're not talking about Bud Spencer.
No.
The-
No, I can't. Actually, French comedies also, like Pierre Richard, amazing.
Okay.
And Italian disco was also allowed, yes. Ricchi and Poveri, all this. Toto Cutugno, full scale. Adriano Celentano.
Whoa. I guess it's still big in Ukraine.
No, but there were lists of forbidden bands like Pink Floyd after '83. It was really forbidden, and whatever Kiss, any rock music was really they were publishing lists of forbidden bands.
Hang on. So if Toto Cutugno and Ricchi and Poveri and Adriano Celentano and Sanremo, I think they must have shown it as well.
Yes, they did.
That's the reason why all these oligarchs have a big house in Italy now. That's
Yes, also. Well, you see,
so Italy became the promised land because of Ricchi and Poveri.
these guys
Rich and poor.
they were singing about love and flowers. They were not singing about problems. They were not singing like, I don't know, begging to Beirut and so on. So they didn't give troubles.
No. This I lived in Italy, and the main theme of the Italian song is the myth about the beach in August in the 50s. So they want to recreate the beach feeling when Italy was pushing itself upwards in modernity, and everybody was liberating themselves from the chains of poverty. Andreotti was dressed in with a white costume. So that was a mythological time in Italy, the 50s and the beach.
Nobody understood anything anyway. So anything
but
on
that's what
foreign
the atmosphere that they were creating and recreating and recreating and recreating, and still do.
Neo-melodica, I heard.
What?
No, they have a new style of this estrada, neo-melodica. Also some mafia guys, some singers connected to mafia. I've been told recently.
Oh yeah,
it develops, so it never went away.
Yeah, but also if you're with the mafia, you can become a singer.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want, can't you?
Oh, no problem. No problem.
The Rat Pack.
Yeah.
Was there any mafia connected with Kvitnu at all, or did anyone try and take over the label, or move in on your territory?
Not directly.
They would steal the name.
But in 90s, when Soviet Union has fallen, and normally the same actually with Yakuza, with mafia, the same thing happens. That kind of gangsters, they took over to rule the situation, to solve the problem, so to say. And actually, the very, very first electronic parties were sponsored by gangsters, who were, because there was no money and so in early, like in 94 something, 95. So there was some kind of, I never spoke to them. I saw some like guys with scars, with guns and stuff. And
that's them. That's definitely them.
But they already liked like psychedelic trance or something like this, and they would come and give some money. So yes, there was some sort of mecenat situation. Most of all of them were killed between each other with fights, obviously. But I was back then when I saw these guys, I was too small. I was not doing anything yet. So I was teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another track.
Yeah, let's go for it.
We go to the science fiction or to, because
think
we've got two of
you
them.
decide. Why don't you decide? Oh, we're going to Variat. Okay. There you go. There's the eye cover, or the snake eating its tail, or the Zen.
Zen tail.
Zen tail, yeah. Variat. Variat? Did I correctly say that?
Yes, Variat.
And what was the name of that track?
I start to forget. This is actually the halves are once again together. It was from the description. One trembita is one traditional Ukrainian instrument, which made in Carpathian Mountains. It's really really long, kind of pipe.
Oh,
And it's only made from the trees. When the lightning hits the tree,
wow.
it kills the tree, it burns it down,
Yeah.
and then it splits on two, and then only this burnt tree is used for making this instrument.
No way.
So the halves are once again together, because actually in this track kind of guitar sings a little, in my way I would say, to this instrument, and then you have to take these two parts of this wood, clean it and do all the necessary things, and then put it back together.
So this was made using one of those lightning...
No. I don't have it because it's kind. I don't know how many meters long, and it's really in the mountains. It's made in the mountains. I don't think you can have it even at home. It's really long.
Oh.
Really long. When you hold
like
it,
one of these Tibetan sort of
yes,
instruments.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So when I made this track, it kind of reminded me of this instrument. So when I just read the description, recalled how it's done. So, and this idea of killed tree by the lightning, and then the parts of broken tree, they're coming back together to join to create a new instrument.
Amazing.
With strings.
No.
It's a...
But like, how do you call it?
Yeah. I don't know.
Not pipe.
No, it's breath. You use your breath. Yeah.
Breath.
It's
yes. Horn?
Yeah. Sure.
Horn. Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
Sort of a horn.
Yeah, but there's a wind instrument. It's a wind instrument.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, you just blow the horn.
You need a lot of lungs.
A lot. Yes.
Shit.
Yes.
And lightning you need
Lungs
as well.
and lightning.
Yeah.
And especially when several guys are doing it together, like really men holding this really long horns,
Amazing.
it sounds really strong. You can hear it from one mountain to another.
Of course.
Yeah.
And then the mountain reproduces it again.
Yeah. So
With
echoes and
echo-
so. Yeah.
Whoa. So they just fill they make the valley sound.
Yeah. And this instrument is called trembita. So.
Now I'm thinking of people who can make, who can find the frequency of a room, and then the whole room sings.
They do it with mountains.
They do it with mountains.
Well, we've had a fan. We've had a fan in here. Not an actual fan of Radio On. There's a kind of chimney area in the space here. It's very small, the studio here, by the way, everyone out there. But I've noticed these kind of standing waves recently because they've changed the fan, or the fan somehow was from the Indian restaurant downstairs was on its last legs. So you start hearing this kind of frequency which starts to either send you crazy, or you have to become in harmony with it somehow. One of my questions was, do you listen to your own music? And how often?
And do you fall asleep when you listen to your own
in the
music?
morning?
No.
So I fall asleep when I listen to my
No, I listen to my music very not often, and usually I do it kind of time check. So let's say if I still think that 1 year later, for instance, now I didn't listen to these tracks since, I don't know, maybe 6-7 months, and now I listen to it, and if I think that it still sounds interesting for me, then for me it's the proof that I made it well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but does it also block making something new?
No.
No, okay.
No. It's somehow I don't have any troubles. But I don't have this always listening to my own stuff. This would be weird.
I'm with the wine now. I'm
Renus is with the wine.
Yeah, this
He's away with the wine.
No,
I mean,
I maybe it resonates with you because when I grew up, there was a very strong presence of the East Bloc, as we called it. At the same time, Spain was almost a no-go area because of Franco. There was a dictator in Portugal. There was a dictator in Greece. They were killing all the students in South America. So geographically, geopsychology,
it's hitting So what was that wine?
So
it says Georgian wine. Is it Georgian wine?
Psychologically speaking, the world was not that big. And now you can go everywhere. But I drink this wine and I think it would be very interesting to go to Georgia if I want to go overland from Berlin. How should I go there? And
By plane?
Is it... No, I don't fly. Is it
Oh.
safe to go
Yes, I
there?
forgot.
Is it safe to go there?
In Georgia? Of course, yes.
And the
Oh,
whole,
what? You mean in terms of now?
and
No,
and the whole region over there between the Black Sea and the Caspic Sea.
No, I think it's safe, yes.
Yeah.
Well, they actually now they have the biggest protest since 10 years or something like this, because the government denied making sanctions to Russia. And people came on the streets, and the Georgian friends, they say that last time, usually when so many Georgians coming on the streets, the government changes. And now, well, if you go there, actually, yeah, it's a good question if it's safe. Well, they have hundreds of thousands of people on the squares now.
Oh. No, I drink this wine, and it's it makes me very curious of the region where this is made, because a region taste is the same like the wine. The taste and the region and the culture over there is the same. But when I lived in Italy, I was particularly fond of the wine that the farmers made themselves. And if they make it, the barrel is in the stable. So with the cows and with the gear from agriculture. And I became such an expert in drinking this kind of wine, which was ripened in stables, I call?
Stables,
That I could taste the cow shit. That I could taste.
They should put that on the label.
That I could taste the way that the stable would smell, and I was completely immersed in this surroundings, in this environment. Because I strongly believe that is very much possible to translate your culture and your
I think so too. I agree.
and the country into your wine. So
And Georgia, actually, they're one of the most hardcore hospitality people.
okay,
They're so for them it's so important to treat guests as kings. And since this is really special for them, and the wine rituals in Georgia are really big, and they love their wine. And this
you've been there?
No, unfortunately, no. But so I know people many, and then since Soviet Union times, the presence, like how they were presented in the culture, so to say, of Soviet culture, it was always about hospitality. And with Ukraine, as we talk, I don't know if I said already, if we consider them as kind of our brothers in arms, let's say, that we suffer from the same asshole from north.
Yeah. Yeah, went so far that the former president had an important part in the politics in Ukraine, or was
he's in jail now.
Huh?
He's
With the Dutch wife.
I think I know about wife, but Saakashvili is in jail in Georgia.
Yeah.
So somehow they have hard times now with the government. I don't know all the details. I was not really following, but it's not easy because Russia was doing their best after 2008 to embed their own politicians again. Some partly successful, partly not. And the opposition is fighting it. But they also, Georgia, the people who love freedom a lot since the ancient times.
Yeah, I think.
And talking about ancient times, it just
Should
brings
go there
me
before I die.
very quickly to what you were saying before, Dmytro, about the mothers of the soldiers that are dying in Russia, and how to change things, perhaps. And it reminds me a little bit about this Aristophanes story, ancient Greek comedy of Lysistrata, where the women decided to stop the men from going to war. They were going to deny them sex. It's a very ancient story, and so talking about that.
You know what? You know what now is happening in Ukraine when our army they're catching the Russian soldiers. There are many videos online now. They ask them to call their mothers or their wives, and they're talking and then tell them that they're prisoners, that they became prisoners of war, and to tell them what is going on actually. And many of the soldiers are crying because they're saying to their mothers or the wives or the fathers that actually we've been told that we came here to liberate someone from Nazis, but we are the Nazis here because we are shelling civilians. And why it's done? First of all, so basically the idea that they're saying to mothers, spread the word because everything is lie. And there are many videos like this. Unfortunately, in many of these videos, mothers don't believe their sons. They're saying, you are lying, it's all bullshit, it's not possible that we are shelling civilians. In one video, the father told to his son, when his son, the soldier, told him that I'm imprisoned and I've been sent here to kill civilians, and his father answered, but I didn't send you there. Many videos of like this, so they're done, so they're calling their mothers, telling that I'm okay here as much as possible and please spread the word, and they're crying, but many of them don't want to believe their own sons and husbands. This is also a really strong thing, and these videos, they come every day, many of them. So our army, they record these videos, put it online, and these conversations, and yeah, it's really intense.
Is it also know what they do with the prisoners of war?
The idea is like this, that it's war. So those who are captured, I don't know where they put them afterwards. This I have no idea how. I mean, I don't know the technology how it should be done, but the idea that they should be not touched, like treated as prisoners of war. The idea is it's really propagated like seriously, because we don't want Ukraine should not look assholes in these cases. So those who are alive, they are treated. There are also videos when the soldiers are in hospitals. They giving a medical treatment. They save their arms, legs as much as it's possible, and often they're calling their mothers from hospitals also. So, but
this image of humanity that comes from Ukraine, that's really unique almost, and
I can tell you, I don't know how much strength is to the soldiers to be humane. Sometimes I think to myself, if I would be there now and capturing, especially when they're capturing pilots who were bombing cities, because several already captured. And if sometimes when they capture like 18 years old boys, in some cases, yes, I can believe when they said they didn't know where they were going. But the pilots, and then sometimes they capture pilots who were in Syria bombing Aleppo, who were bombing Georgia, who were bombing now Ukraine. And I think it's really hard to not to do anything to them.
No, but you see that they are clearly beaten up. That's
well, yes, but they are. I mean, they are not. Well, they're alive.
What would you do in every series that I watch now? It's like from boom, boom, boom immediately that they kill it. But the president, of course, Zelensky, is great, but he's also an actor. Yes. But despite whatever, you can have every profession before becoming a president.
Ronald Reagan,
yes.
Right? But I think it helps because the wife is also a scriptwriter, so you know what is the best way to do, and if it doesn't come from the heart, if for the effect to
you
everyone worldwide.
You can tell.
This is the best thing that you can do. No, there is no way in. There's no way that this Zelensky is acting. There's no.
He's not acting now.
There is no space behind him anymore.
Absolutely. Also, he's no doubt he's in his office.
Yeah.
When he's barely speaking, he really barely sleeps. I know how they managed him to sleep for I don't know for how many hours. And when he's talking, all the videos, and when he's going and making the selfie videos in front of that there were already, I think, 3 or more attempts to kill him.
Yeah.
And he's not leaving Kiev. So, and when he's talking, nobody has doubt that he's in this case honest. And before there were questions. Now, no questions. And also in terms of terminology. So he comes from a very unsuccessful industrial city, Kryvyi Rih. It's a really long city, 126 kilometers long.
Huh?
Yes, we have the city, and it's really like a long line.
Yeah,
it's not a round city. And Zelensky comes from this city. This city is I don't know, Manchester or Detroit, something like that, some like industrial, unlivable place.
By the side of a river or somewhere.
It's more about when it's all industrial. It's really polluted,
right?
And its life is really tough there. And Zelensky, I don't know how to translate the term. So he's like the tough guy is coming from this tough city, and now he became an actor. He became successful figure in TV industry and all this stuff, and he learned how to act. And he funny guy, always there. But since the beginning of war, he acts like this tough street guy from this tough city. Like you wanna come here, let's fuck. Something like this. And then whenever it's hard to describe, but this mimics, the phrases, his reactions, Putin turned on the bad asshole in him, and everybody knows it, because somehow we all know this kind of guys from the bad neighborhoods who became successful, but you can still open it. And the war opened it in him full scale.
So this is what Ukrainians see, and we can't see because we don't know this connection.
Yes, and that's why 100% support to him. Anyone who was against him the day before, the next day everybody said it's amazing that he is there. If Poroshenko would be now, he would start definitely some dirty negotiations, some bullshit, some playing. He would be more actor. Zelensky now is not an actor. Of course, he maybe enjoy. I don't know if they tell him that he's now a superstar. How much he knows about it, if he's busy. But he acts now like a tough guy, like really like who was put in the corner, and he's definitely not going to leave. Maybe die. I don't know.
I thought of that yesterday, but I have to knock that off. That in my most pessimistic vision, this would end very badly.
No. It will be the end will be good. We don't know when. End will be good.
I mean, you were talking about the end of your label before, and then that you would decide new beginnings.
No, I'm talking about the end of empire, end of war. I'm talking about we just don't know when, and we don't know how many troubles we will have to go through. If it will be 1 more month, 1 more year, we don't know. It will end well because on many levels. Putin made many mistakes. He really underestimated the situation, and for the first time in history of my country, it feels like the whole world is helping in many different levels, on political level, on personal level. Every of my friends is doing something. Going to demos, sending like €5, something bigger money. Some driving cars to there. It feels like everybody is involved. People cannot sleep, and somehow metaphysically, this is the last war against this empire, and we don't know when it will end. But now we are talking. Now we have fighters from Chechnya. They say this is the chance for Chechnya to become free. Now we have fighters from Georgia. They say finally we will have clean land from Russian invasion and so on. There are many hopes in Moldova, many people warring in Baltic countries. This should be the last fight. This must be the last fight. Because you see, so many nations for hundreds of years, not only Ukraine, have history of this genocides, cleansing, of this moving people here and there. Crimean Tatars, they lost their land. You know, Kazakhstan, Russia wants north of Kazakhstan back, and so on. And it's all around. So we hope it will end soon, but we know that it will end well. Just we don't know when.
Dmytro, thank you very much for coming in this evening.
Thank you very much.
And we look forward to many, many more shows as well with you.
Hopefully.
Can you choose a track for the last track for this show? Which album are you going to choose?
No,
Yep.
Let's do Variat again.
Variat.